Welcome back to Mind Your Business. I'm your host, Stephen Meadows, and today I have a very rare treat. I have met this very interesting individual in a mastermind group, and we got to chatting and thought, hey, let's do a podcast. I think he's got a lot of interesting things to share, and I think you, as my listeners, will enjoy hearing some of the things that he's here to talk about. So I am pleased to introduce Henry.Ching. He is the founder of Ingenuity Solutions. It's a company providing fractional integrator and COO services for companies running on EOS. Now, we will definitely go through that alphabet soup here in just a moment, and Henry's going to tell us everything that we need to know about what those words and letters all mean. But what really impresses me about Henry is his background. He has over 20 years of experience in executive leadership, IT, operations, human resources, marketing, sales, finance, legal, you name it. And he has a really interesting perspective on things. He has helped build a $200 million wireless company. He has worked with large organizations like eBay and Amazon and QVC. And he says that his superpower is effectively integrating systems, processes, and people for optimal performance. And that is something near and dear to my heart, for sure, as a COO. And so I'm really excited to talk to Henry today. He is a graduate of the Integrator Masterclass and a member of the Integrator Mastery Forum, which sounds really... He lives in Fairfax, Virginia, just outside of DC, for those of you who don't know. And he enjoys life with his wife, 2 college-age children, and his dog, Percy. So, Henry, welcome to the show. I'm really looking forward to having an interesting chat with you. But first of all, what breed is Percy?
Thanks for having me on the show, Stephen. I really appreciate it. And the call out for Percy. Percy's a puggle, so that means he's half pug and half beagle. He's quite the character.
Yeah, it sounds like that would be an interesting mix for sure. That's awesome. So let's just dive in. I'm interested to know about your career path. You've had a very interesting career path. So if it's instead of me trying to piece it all together, why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey and some of the best lessons you learned along the way, and just sort of some of the hats that you've worn in the past.
Awesome. Thanks for taking me through that. So absolutely, in my 20 plus year career, I started off in technology, building software and systems, and doing some consulting work. So I really laid a great foundation in my younger career, learning about project management and people management, which is a strong challenge for most people. But I really wanted to scratch a entrepreneurial itch, and I started building websites on the side. And eventually that's how I met my visionary partners. They were already in the wireless industry. And so I joined forces with them. I launched simplywireless.com, which was our flagship website, which ultimately became an omni-channel business. So that means not only did we sell on the web, but we also sold on other television networks like QVC and Home Shopping Network, along with electronic partners like Amazon, eBay, Walmart, and the like. So some of the bigger players in the space. And so we were, we had a very unique business in the industry because we were the only ones that were doing, selling our products on all those channels. And ultimately, we built out a fantastic business, $200 million, 700 plus employees. But it was quite the journey. And, we started in the late 1990s and really built up the retail and partnered up with the likes of AT&T Wireless and T-Mobile, and eventually, ran through some rough patches during the, early 2000s when some of the carriers started merging. And anytime carriers merge, it brings on challenges. They cut costs and they do all kinds of funky things. But that caused us to kind of reassess things and ultimately While, we went through a couple of years of tough challenges, and remember, there was an economic crisis in the midst of all of that too. We reemerged as a leaner company and remade ourselves and focused very heavily on, fewer businesses, and then which allowed us to scale again. So and do it more profitably. So some of the lessons that I learned is, business is all about relationships, and you absolutely need to foster those relationships. Make sure that you kind of have the foresight to see what's going on in the industry, because you absolutely need to kind of move with that, and they are quite dynamic and dramatic. So it was a very fun ride. But now I'm on to my next and new gig, which is Ingenuity Solutions and my fractional integrator business.
So going quickly back to your background and talking about, having kind of gone through the ups and downs of the market shifts and things like that, a lot of us out there right now in the real estate space are facing a lot of that same, those same issues where, we're kind of looking at the revenue versus expenses and going, how do I cut expenses without signaling blood in the water, or without worrying my staff or my in our instance agents as well. How do you help control the narrative when there is a retraction in your business, so that you're not, it doesn't look like you're failing, I guess the short question.
Absolutely. I think the key there is really, starts with the culture, right? And within the culture is communication, right? So as long as you involve your employees, you help them understand what your vision for the business is, and then how do you approach that vision? How do you get to that? What are the elements that get to, completing the vision? You'll find that your employees are much more bought in, that your staff is more committed to, what you're trying to achieve. And, it's a much more collaborative relationship. You're not trying to sell them something, right? And, when they feel a part of your organization, they feel part of your family. Like I said, they're much more committed, right? And they'll understand that, hey, there are lean times. There are difficult times. There's also, the opposite of that, right? There's the great times when, business is flowing and deals are happening, and, in your business, there's 9 or 10 people writing contracts, right? So there is an ebb and flow. And, you just need to make sure you stay committed to the fact that you're running a solid business, that you're not over expanding when times are hot. And, you're going to work with the teams to make sure that you can survive the lean times, because sometimes it does get very challenging. But we oftentimes communicated our goals to our employees. We let them know things were tough. And it was amazing. People pitched in. People were helpful. So that's really the secret sauce: communication.
A follow-up to that is, are those decisions generally originating from someone like you, one of the integrators, or is that a visionary thing? Because my experience, generally the visionaries aren't the ones that want to retract. They're not the ones that necessarily want to look at the bottom line. They don't want to look at the P&L. So where would you say you kind of fit into that dynamic?
Absolutely. I mean, the integrator doesn't always have the funnest job, right? It's either the COO, the president of the company, could be a VP of finance, could be, a lot of different titles in that integrator role. But yeah, we're the realists, right? We're the ones that have to, manage the organization on a day-to-day basis. We deal with the P&L. We lead the people and ensure that, the teams are working harmonious. So absolutely, it's one of my primary functions is to communicate with the staff. But I also need my partner, the visionary, right? The visionary is the one that leads the culture, that, brings enthusiasm to the organization, and people follow him or her. And so it's absolutely paramount that they lay out the vision, that they communicate alongside, and you're united, right? That your communications are consistent. And when they see that the leadership is consistent and moving in a direction together, then of course they're going to follow.
So you've mentioned the term integrator a couple of times, and we've used the term EOS. And your LinkedIn profile says that you are also a fractional COO. So what does all that mean? Break it down for us.
Great question, Stephen. Yes, I am a fractional COO and an integrator. And so what that means is organizations can hire a senior leader on a less than full-time basis. And, as an integrator, you come in and you help, organize the company. You provide leadership to the leadership team. You harmoniously ensure that the teams are working together and the departments are working together towards a common vision, right? Towards common goals. And that they're collaborating and they're, like I said, it's harmonious, right? And as an integrator, one of my primary roles is reducing a lot of that responsibility from the visionary, right? So the visionary is typically the president of the company or the owner, the CEO. They are somebody who has lots of ideas and, it creates the culture and brings a lot of the excitement to the business. But probably more typically, they're not that excited about doing the day-to-day stuff, right? So, managing the P&L, holding people accountable, looking at reports and data and the like, and interpreting all of that, setting up processes. So those are kind of more mundane tasks, and that's the role of, what the integrator brings to the table is to make sure that those things are done and they're working commonly towards that vision that the visionary has laid out. As far as EOS is concerned, it's called the Entrepreneurial Operating System, right? And for those of you who are interested, read the book Traction by Gino Wickman. He lays out the EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, in that book and really talks about the system in which businesses can run on, right? And they're one of the primary things he talks about is there can only be one system, right? So once you have multiple systems or you have multiple ideas on how to run a business, then it's fractured, right? But the EOS is there to ensure consistency, to help, that vision get brought all the way down to the ground in terms of a plan, right? And then the goals that are associated. What things are you measuring on a weekly and monthly and quarterly basis to ensure that you actually are reaching that goal? Just a lot more, and also defining the processes, right, of how to get to those goals. So once you have all the tools in place and you're operating in an operating system like EOS, there's just a much greater chance that you can have consistent performance, you can grow, and ultimately, be more successful. Your folks, your team will rally around it because now they actually have a plan, right? It's not just, oh, what am I doing today? What's the flavor of the day, right? So they can operate more independently on their own when they know the plan, right? And they can contribute the solutions to the issues that you often come up with in getting to your goal, right? So EOS is an incredible framework by which a business can run and operate and thrive.
And you said the author's name is Gino Wickman. Do you know is he any relation to Floyd Wickman?
His father is Floyd Wickman.
Oh, okay. That when you said it, I was like, wait a minute. I feel like I know that name. So a lot of the real estate folks out there will definitely know the name Floyd Wickman. He's a legend in the real estate industry and sales in general. But I don't know too many seasoned real estate folks that haven't been to a Floyd Wickman seminar or listened to Floyd's stuff. He actually did a private session for our company a few years ago. He's a great guy.
Yeah, great point there. Floyd Wickman and Gino ran a real estate sales training organization.
Yeah.
And they're very, very successful. So
yeah, I never made the connection until you just, I'm like, wait a minute, I know that name. That's funny. Small world. I have not gotten to meet Gino, but I have met Floyd before. But yeah, the books sound very interesting. There's actually a second book. Did he do both the books that you've referenced before? You and I
Yeah,
have
so
talked about a
Gino
couple.
also co-wrote Rocket Fuel,
Okay,
right?
that's what I
And
thought.
so Rocket Fuel is talking about the relationship between a visionary and an integrator. And so the term rocket fuel is really talking about what happens when you have a visionary integrator duo that's well matched.
Mm-hmm.
It's rocket fuel to light the fire uh, for a rocket, and of course your organization enables it to take off.
Mm-hmm. Great. So, being out there dealing with entrepreneurs on a regular basis, what would you say is the biggest struggle that they're facing, in general or specific to an industry, and how do you help navigate them through those challenges?
Sure. So entrepreneurs oftentimes um, their challenge is communicating their vision and putting it on paper. Um, they really struggle with um, allowing creating a structure in which their organization can actually take that vision and make it a reality. So they're running around doing multiple things, wearing multiple hats, and oftentimes a visionary is doing an integrator's job, and probably having a rough time at it because it's really not their natural ability, right? It's not what they enjoy or perhaps even do best. And so it's really sucking the life out of that visionary. So it's really important for entrepreneurs to really have a great team in place, to find the right leadership, and to ensure that, again, the team is driving towards that common goal, right? And then also defining a culture, right? So I know a lot of times, entrepreneurs like, oh, we'll get to that later, right? But if you don't set up your culture, you don't define your goals early on, well, you really don't have a plan. And so, you might have some minor successes here or there, but it's not a truly scalable business. So ultimately, entrepreneurs need to, really sit down and think about their business, think about what their plans are for the future, define a 3-year, a 10-year, a 1-year, and then a quarterly plan. And that's what the EOS really helps them do.
Sure. You mentioned earlier the visionary and the integrator need to be well matched. What are some reasons or instances where they may not be well matched, or where they don't necessarily work well together?
Absolutely. My first suggestion would be for both the visionary and the integrator to take an assessment, right? There's something called a crystallizer assessment, and that measures if a visionary is truly a visionary, or maybe they're perhaps more of an integrator. And the same is true for an integrator, right? So if you are truly a visionary and you hire a true integrator, you have different personalities. You're focused on different things. It's sort of like a yin and a yang, right? So you balance each other out, and you're not on top of each other in terms of the things that you like to do. So that's typically the reasons why you are well matched. But again, if you kind of like doing the same things and you're kind of always running into each other, then it's a problem. The other issue is can a visionary really delegate the responsibility to an integrator, right? So will they stick to doing what they do best and sort of get out of the way of the integrator when the integrator is really doing the nitty gritty stuff, which is not what the visionary signed up for to begin with, right? And that's the reason why they came together. So as long as they have that agreement in place and have a good communication, and both parties are held accountable and follow through with that communication, then there is a much stronger chance for success between the visionary and the integrator.
So again, this is a fascinating topic for me. So would you say, generally speaking, that one tends to be more introverted and the other tends to be more extroverted, or can you have an extroverted integrator with an introverted visionary? Like, where do you usually see those personalities fall, or is there no really rule across the board?
I don't think there's a rule, but absolutely, a visionary typically, is a bit more outgoing. They like doing the sales. They like meeting with the customers. They're the ones that, like I said, create a culture. and lead the culture. They have lots of ideas. They're typically kind of, very dynamic people who kind of can't sit still, right? So if you want to describe that as an extrovert, for sure, right? But an integrator is typically more of an introvert, likes things like data and processes, but they also have very strong interpersonal skills, and that's one of the keys to the success of a successful integrator is having a high EQ and be able to work harmoniously with the leadership team as well as the vision.
So going back to your history, what would you say is the biggest mistake you made along your career path, and how did it sort of shape the rest of your journey?
Well, the biggest mistake that I ever made was that I didn't invest my money, my family's money, your family's money in Apple during the 1990s and
Well,
kept it
I
up
have to
to
have a
this day.
time machine. We might be able to go fix that. Let's
Okay.
let's make that happen.
Well, let's go get that time machine right now. No, but in all seriousness, one of the keys that I've talked about throughout this conversation is culture, right? And there was a time in our business where we brought on a lot of people from the outside, and we didn't really take into account whether they fit our culture or not. We tried to fit our organization around their skill sets and what they brought to the table, and so that was a almost tragic mistake for us. We almost went to the brink of bankruptcy because we had people leading our organization that really didn't fit who we were. And so I would say, make sure you're staying true to yourself, that when you hire people from the outside, and invariably you have to, right? So, as your organization grows, you need to bring different skill sets in. But you interview them, find the right people that fit your culture, that embody, the core competencies of your organization, and really, uphold that company culture. Otherwise, it's very challenging, and again, you'll find your organization really discombobulated and confused. So we're rowing all in the same direction, and we're not all the same, but we think like.
Yeah, I can tell you that situation is even more apparent when you're doing mergers, because you're not just hiring one or two people, you're bringing in 30, 50, 75 people at one time. The culture is very important. I preach that all the time when I'm out there doing, merger consulting, and especially for our company, the culture is very important. I tell people, if you don't have a good feeling about the culture of the other company, just walk away from the deal, because it's not going to be worth it. I had I was at a leadership summit, and they had a motivational speaker coach somebody. I should know, is Gino, maybe? I don't know. He was a women's UConn basketball coach.
Okay.
Yeah. So he said something that was really, really powerful that I've always remembered. He said, if you have a vat of sewage and you have a bottle of fine wine, and you take a little eyedropper and you put a drop of the wine into the sewage, what do you have? You got a vat of sewage.
Right.
Now, if you have a vat of fine wine and you take an eyedropper and you put sewage in there, what do you have? You've got sewage. You've just ruined that entire vat of wine with one drop of sewage. And I've really held on to that, because it does not take much to screw up the culture of your company. It's like with machines. The more complex a machine is, the easier it is to stop it up. It doesn't take much to throw a wrench into it and screw everything up. So yeah, culture, don't underestimate that, because if you bring in the wrong people, it's not going to be very pleasant for anybody involved, honestly. So
That's right, Stephen.
Oh, good. Yes, I big proponent of that. So, what would you say is your 30-second pitch if I put you in front of a visionary right now? Why would they need to talk to you, or why should they want to talk to you about their organization?
So I would say if you're a visionary and you're also doing the integrator role, then you absolutely want to talk to me, right? Because you're probably spinning your wheels. You're doing a lot of things that you're not enjoying. And I'm here to help, steady that ship, to ensure that your organization is running harmoniously, to take away a lot of the headache and the day-to-day frustrations that you might be having, in doing things that you don't like to do. And so that's what a professional fractional integrator is there to do, to perform, is to bring the organization together to fulfill your vision, but also to allow you to do what you do best, to perhaps even enjoy some time with your family, and of course to grow the organization and to be profitable as well.
Wait a minute. So you're saying that you're allowed to enjoy what you do and also be profitable? That's allowed in business? Wow. I don't know if everybody knows that.
That's a
Uh,
great
you know,
point, Stephen. I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't know that, and again, that's some of the value that an integrator can bring to the table.
yeah. This is totally an aside, but one of the terms I absolutely cannot stand is the grind. When people say, "Oh, back to the grind, rise and grind." And I'm like, well, what if I don't see what I do as a grind? To me, a grind sounds bad. Like, it's something you have to do. And I know people try to spin it into a positive connotation. I don't consider what I do a grind. If I feel like it's a grind, that I don't think I'm in the right position. I feel like you should be able to enjoy what you do. I mean, that's one of the purposes of building the career that you want, is
And
getting to
that's
a
a
point that
great
you
point,
like.
Stephen. Again, that's what the integrator role is supposed to do, right? It takes away the grind from the visionary as well as the leadership team, right? So if we lay out a plan and we execute the plan and we involve people in that execution, you'll find that it's not work anymore. It's actually joy, right? And so, we want to have a harmonious, ship that is rowing forward together, and it brings a lot more joy. And you'd be amazed how quickly an organization comes together and how quickly they, move that ship through the waters.
Awesome. So besides taking the crystallizer assessment, and is it crystallizer? Is that correct?
That's correct.
Besides taking the crystallizer assessment, besides reading Rocket Fuel and Traction, what is the takeaway that you would want a visionary who's listening to this to have?
I would say really take an examination of your organization, get an understanding of what you want out of your business. And, do you want to be running that business the way that it's being run today? And if it's not working for you, then start to look to the outside to see if something like an EOS can work for you, right? And you really have to be committed and bought in. There is some cost to it. But what ultimately happens is if the headache, the heartache, all the hours of stress, and it brings your team together, and it'll enable your organization to grow and actually thrive. So yeah, I would absolutely say take some time to examine, is it really the situation you want to be in? And if not, do something.
I 100% agree with that. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, unfortunately, see a price tag on something and they're like, well, I can't spend. And it's like, well, it's an investment. If it's the time value of money, if you can do something faster by paying someone else, to double your workload or whatever, double your work capacity, maybe there's some value in that. It's not always about the dollar sign. Sometimes it's a matter of a work-life balance or whatever. You're going to pay for it one way or the other. You're either paying for it from your own time or you're paying somebody else to do it. So I'm a big proponent of that. If we can find a way to move us faster to our goal, even if it's costing a little more money, in the long run, we're going to end up being better off. So,
Well, and that's a great point, Stephen, but I'll say this about fractional integrators, right? So the reason why it's fractional and it's actually a lower cost of bringing in somebody who's got senior leadership experience, and playing a role in your organization that is so important, and getting it for, I don't know, 1/4 or 1/5 the cost. right? So it is a tremendous value. And if you just look at it from a dollar and cent standpoint, like you said, you're not really understanding what you're investing, right? You're investing in getting some of your own time, how to optimize your business. Also for your team, they working with a fractional also forces them to be more effective and efficient, right? Because there's just less time for the fluff. You're not spending all day with that person. And so you've got to be prepared to bring your issues and your resolutions. And so it's just a much more efficient and effective way to operate a business.
Great. Well, thank you so much. This was riveting, at least for me. I love this kind of topic. I think it's very interesting, and I hope everyone else enjoyed it too. Henry's contact information is going to be available. I highly recommend that you reach out to him if you are trying to assess your organization. He and I have had some great conversations, so I can definitely speak to the quality of his advice. Really, really cool guy. And hopefully we get to meet in person fairly soon. We don't live that far apart, only a couple hours. But I appreciate everybody tuning in. Henry, thank you for being on the show. And I will see everybody on the next one.
Thank you very much, Stephen. You have a great day.
You too.